30, Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Make sure to check out the Income Store live video stream of today's show right now at 560theanswer.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy, and this is interesting. We talked to Cheryl Atkinson about this gentleman, Larry Sanger, co-founder of Wikipedia. We talked to her about him on Monday because of her experience with Wikipedia and the Wikipedia minders distorting her biography online. Well, Larry Sanger is calling for a 2-day hashtag social media strike from the 4th of July, tomorrow through Friday, in the name of privacy protection as part of an effort to pressure the networks, social media networks, into restoring control of personal data to users. We will not use social media in those days except to post notices that we are on strike, Sanger writes, trying to raise this issue. He is also the author of the Declaration of Digital Independence, which advocates for the decentralization of big social media. And he's asking for digital dissenters to sign that declaration and strike with him over the next 2 days, to send a message to the man or the men that control the big social media companies. A related story is sort of interesting. Tyler Cohen, he's the econ professor at George Mason University, does the Marginal Revolution blog, which is very good. He has a piece in Bloomberg suggesting one way to improve the social media culture or the culture on these platforms: get an education. Internet 101 should be a required class. Mm-hmm. If Americans agree on anything these days, writes Cohen, it's our schools could be much better, and that internet culture is harming our children. I have a simple proposal: high school classes on how to use the internet more effectively. He
followed up by a common sense course.
Well, he writes, students, indeed adults, could be taught how to use social media more productively. Twitter, for example, tends to be irritating and polarizing when used to express political views, but it's wonderful for following music and the arts, as well as events in other countries.
And learning about your friends.
Well, okay, sure.
Oh, yeah. Everything I know about you, Dan, I know from Twitter and the Instagram now.
But Cohen's takeaway is it's striking and sad. There's so much over-the-top criticism of social media, yet so little faith in education as a possible remedy. Can we educate our way out of some of these travails, both with respect to privacy concerns as well as with respect to censorship concerns? This brings us to Eric Cochran. He's the Pintrest whistleblower. He is the individual who has gone public to suggest that Pinterest is purposely censoring pro-life organizations and pro-life messages on that platform. Specifically, Live Action is one of the organizations he mentioned, and Cochran described this in an interview with Julie Royce, who we'll be speaking to in a moment.
Lots of conservatives and Christians and pro-lifers and other anti-establishment people in the culture right now and outside of Silicon Valley have been saying, hey, like, I'm seeing a lot of stuff go wrong. Like, my content doesn't get a lot of the views it used to. Like, what's going on? And then it's been like, oh, well, it's a fluke, or, oh, it's a bug.
Right.
But then now, as seen in this Pinterest story from the documents that I leaked, and now in more of the insider stories that Project Veritas is coming out with, you're seeing the actual proof, the hard proof from the back end that the tech companies are not denying, with the actual reasons why this content is being censored and how it's being censored on the back end from these tech companies.
And there's another interesting excerpt from that interview, something we didn't get from the interview that James O'Keefe did with that Google whistleblower whose voice and identity was distorted. And probably we didn't get an answer to this question because that would have revealed who he was, and he didn't want to do that. Eric Cochran, not so inhibited. Why did he come forward? Why is he blowing this whistle?
I really do think that, God put me in this place to do this thing, and I think that's part of why, there was no hesitation, that I knew this had to be done. And because if I didn't do it, there'd just be this bystander effect. Like, who else was going to do it? I was put in this place for this reason, to do this, to let people know about this. And again, like, at the end of the day, like, am I just going to be ashes? Like, will I have done what I was put here to do?
Great questions for us all to remember. We're pleased to be joined now for more on this interview and this topic by Julie Roys. She's a Christian author, speaker, blogger, podcaster, the host of the Roys Report, Sunday at 7 p.m. on these airwaves, AM 560. Her interview with Pintrest whistleblower Eric Cochran will air this Saturday at 11 a.m. on WYLL, our sister station. That's AM 1160. And then Sunday at 7 p.m. on AM 560. Julie, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, well, glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
In addition to those excerpts that we played in terms of what motivated Eric Cochran to blow the whistle and the substance of what he was blowing the whistle on, what were some of the key takeaways from his experience that maybe can be paid forward with respect to social media?
Yeah, well, it's almost like if you've read the novel 1984, where there's sort of a dystopian view of society where you've got a ministry of truth that controls the people by controlling all the information. Eric Cochran said that's what's going on right now with these big tech companies. And it's not just Pinterest. It's Google, who, as you referenced, Project Veritas just came up with a whistleblower there who disguised his voice and everything. But saying, yeah, Google's doing it. Of course, Google owns YouTube. YouTube's doing it. Vimeo's doing it. All of these companies are censoring, and they're all censoring content according to what they think is fair, what they think the vision of America should be. So, for example, they don't think it's fair that Donald Trump got elected president. They're sure that the American people just got bad information. So if they curate the information just right, the American people will vote the way that these enlightened people at the top of these tech companies think, that we'll think just like they think. Or, for example, it's not fair that a woman shouldn't be able to abort her unborn child up until the moment that baby comes out of the birth canal. That's not fair. But if they give us the information and only the information that they curate, we'll begin thinking like they do. And it's un-American. It's scary. It's a complete violation of what they say they're doing. They say they're a neutral platform. In truth, they're really publishers with editorial boards that are extremely liberal, extremely anti-Christian, extremely anti-anything conservative. And so this is really what made Eric Cochran say, I can't just sit back and not say anything. I need to blow the whistle. And so that's what he did. And interestingly, so he blows the whistle on Pinterest, goes to Project Veritas, and they make this video. Project Veritas puts that video up on YouTube. YouTube takes it down. Vimeo takes it down,
right.
Essentially proving exactly what he's saying, that they're all in cahoots together and they're all into censoring content.
And is Eric Cochran solid with his decision to be the whistleblower? Does he have any regrets?
Yeah, he's really solid on it. I mean, he initially came out with a disguised voice and, the big hood and sort of darkened face so that you can't tell who he is. But they found out within days, and he was fired. And he said, I knew it was going to happen. I knew I was going to probably get fired. And he was prepared for that. And he's like, my life's an adventure right now. It's taken a totally different turn. But he believes that this is what God wanted him to do. And so, we kind of joked about him being on a mission from God like the Blues Brothers, right? But he does feel like this is what he was put here to do. He did it, and now he doesn't know where his life's going to go next. I mean, he was a software engineer up pretty high, giving conferences around the world, I guess, informing people on how to use software and different things. But he doesn't know where he's going to land exactly. But he's confident that he did the right thing.
Well, maybe we need to get these inside men who blew the whistle all together and form another social media company that actually adheres to the values that these social media companies say they do, but don't, as you're describing. I mean, you got James Damore, you got people that escaped from Facebook, you've got Eric Cochran, you got this guy from Google that James O'Keefe just interviewed recently. Maybe there's an idea there of bring all that talent together for to build a bigger, better, freer platform.
Well, and apparently that's being proposed. Jordan Peterson, you're familiar with him?
Yeah.
and a conservative voice from Canada, and he's got quite a following. He's beginning to say this, that if conservatives don't band together and develop their own platforms, there's going to be no place for conservatives. And so this needs to be done. But I think another takeaway here, and Eric and I talked about this because we're both been whistleblowers. I lost the job for blowing the whistle. And I just asked him, how many conservatives or Christians, because, again, this is a lot of anti-Christian bias that he was talking about as well, how many conservatives and Christians are in these big tech companies? And he's like, oh, my goodness, there's thousands. I mean, Google alone employs 100,000 people. He said, there's plenty of them. And I said, do they see it? He's like, yeah, you can't be there and not see it. And I just asked him, what would happen if everybody, instead of going along to get along, actually blew the whistle and stood up and grew a backbone? What would happen? And he's like, oh, they'd instantly have to stop the censorship. There would be a huge uproar, in the country. And Congress would have to investigate because it would be clear that they're violating exactly their own principles. So I think that's one of the takeaways, is that people need to stand up and say something.
Well, that's always the case. But, I mean, you see this. This is like, so one of the problems with what Tyler Cohen proposed that I just referenced before you joined us about teaching an Internet 101 class. He sort of is making that proposal in a vacuum because he doesn't really answer the question or address the problem. Well, who's teaching the class? I mean, you have the same dynamic in K through 12 public education as you do at these big tech companies. You have decidedly one viewpoint, and any other viewpoint that runs afoul of it is increasingly marginalized, including at the K through 12 level. So there's not much use in teaching a course designed to further a single agenda and essentially advance the same culture in K through 12 that you see playing out in social media companies.
Oh, absolutely, and especially if it's going to be taught in public schools. I mean, we know all the teacher colleges in America have been taken over by Bill Ayers now is a big education proponent. They're reading his books in these teacher colleges. Linda Darling Hammond. I mean, all these far leftists from the 60s are now educating our teachers. So if you think education, especially in the public schools, is going to be the way to fix this, all that will do is probably further the narrative. I don't think that's a solution at all.
So you said that you were a whistleblower. Can you tell us your story?
Sure. Yeah, about 18 months ago, I was actually working at the Moody Bible Institute, and I saw some wrongdoing going on there. For example, the president of the institute was given a $500,000 loan to buy $1 million condo, and he's what some would call a disqualified person because he sits on the board, and you're not supposed to give loans to disqualified people. That's an IRS no-no. Right. But there were other things going on as far as being true to their doctrine. For example, the doctrine of inerrancy of Scripture. There were some there who were espousing things that seemed to be contrary to that. Yet when they bring that to the administration wouldn't come down on the person who's erring as far as fidelity to the doctrine. They would come down on the whistleblower or the person that's complaining about it. And so I came to the point where I felt like here I was a journalist. I happened to be in this position where I had this information, a lot of the professors coming to me with it, and I felt like it was a matter of conscience. I had to steward this information in a responsible way. And I first went to the trustees hoping they would do something. But when it became clear to me that they were actually in cahoots with the administration, then I felt like, that's a time when you have to go public. And so I published about it, and the top 3 officers were removed from Moody. It's got a new administration now. I'm actually hopeful for the Institute. But as a result of doing that, I didn't get a thank you. I got fired, and that's actually what happened. But that's okay. Your life takes a little different direction. And I had a radio show on Moody Radio. Now I have a radio show on WYLL and WIND. So there you go. It turned out okay.
There you go. It's funny how things turn out okay when you err on the side of doing the right thing. She is Julie Royce. She's a Christian author, speaker, blogger, podcaster, host of the Royce Report, Sunday, 7 p.m. on these airwaves, AM 560. Her interview that we were just referencing, you heard clips from, with Pintrest whistleblower Eric Cochran will air Saturday at 11 a.m. on our sister station, WYLL, AM 1160. Sunday at 7 p.m. on AM 560, these airwaves. Julie, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.